Hello everyone, my name is Reggie and welcome to my channel. Today I am sharing with you all of the books I read in the month of August, so this is my August wrap up. And I know this is like a cliche thing to say, but like holy cow, where did August go and how is it already September? August was a really weird month for me. I didn't post a lot of videos, I didn't read a lot of books. I read more books than I posted videos though, so there's that, which isn't a good thing necessarily, but it's a thing. If you're new to my channel and you haven't seen a wrap up before, I personally go through all the books I read in the month and rank them in order from my least favorite to my most favorite. The first book I have to talk to you about today is Love and First Light by Hannah Ornstein. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. This is about our main character who co-owns a jewelry store with her sister. The plot really takes off when she accidentally posts an engagement picture announcement on her Instagram, which is an Instagram she shares with the business and her personal Instagram, announcing an engagement that doesn't exist. So all of her followers think she's engaged and she has like 100,000 followers on the business's Instagram, and so she has to pretend that she's engaged. It sounded like it was going to be a really cute fake dating trip, and it was not that. What it was a manipulative girl trying to get away with a con. So basically, because she had 100,000 followers, she got offers to get like a free wedding dress as long as she promoted the dress company, and a free wedding basically if she just promoted all the places that put this together for her. And so she dates this guy and starts having actual feelings for this guy, and then is trying to get him to propose to her so that she can have the wedding, and like it's just super manipulative and gross. And then there's a love triangle, and it's like super predictable how this is all gonna play out. First of all, I was hoping I would be wrong because how it plays out is just unhealthy and not okay. The problem with this and why it's not like a 1 star, why it's a 2 star for me, is that I think it was so much of it was such a great depiction of being like a late 20 something trying to figure out life and the world, how it's so different. And like she talks a lot about dating apps and about finances and about finding your passion and finding friends, and like she's living in the city and she doesn't want to have to leave the city, and it talks about like her business, and there's just so many beautiful nuanced with it conversations about being a 20-something that I loved. But that all that is amidst this really con artist story where she's trying to get away with this. Think about this book. If it was a guy trying to get a girl to marry him so that he could get away with this to help his business, you would think he was a douche. So why are we not thinking this girl was a horrible person? The book isn't presented that way though. You're supposed to root for the main character, and that's the problem with this. If this was a satire, or you were forced to face like the realities of how the world is corrupting youth or like 20-somethings or young adults, then it would make a lot more sense. It would be a very believable and actually nuanced and super smart story. But you're supposed to like, this is a romance and you're supposed to like root for this main character, and it's just frustrating. But like, because those nuanced conversations were there, I didn't give it a 1 star. I mean, I probably should, but I didn't. I just wish this would have gone all the way there, made it like a commentary, not a romance. And I think it would have been so much stronger for it. I think it could have been like a 5 star had it done this right. Or had it been what I thought about it and been like a fake dating thing. That would have been much better. Next up, we have Lucky in Love by Casey West. This is a YA romance about a young girl who wins the lotto basically. On her 18th birthday, she buys a lotto ticket and she ends up winning like $30 million or something. And so it's just a great like look at that story that you pretty much already know about, like what happens when you win the lotto, how it affects your life. I don't think it was particularly new or fresh or different, but I thought it was really fun. I enjoyed my time while reading it. It was by Casey West. This is my second Casey West novel. I'm really enjoying her stuff. None of her stuff is like 5 stars standing out. I love it, but I will keep reading it because it keeps being enjoyable and fun, especially at the time I'm reading it, and it's quick reads. So I gave this one a 3.5 stars. Like I said, really enjoyed it. The romance was fine. It wasn't like anything great. It wasn't anything bad. I didn't have a problem with the main character in this one. She was a little naive, but I found that believable for the kind of character she was and like the kind of background she had. It made sense to me for her to be the type of naive she was at 18. I feel like I wish she communicated with people differently, but I understand why she didn't. Like, I mean, like everything that I had like a slight issue with, I get it. So I don't really have any true issues with it. I just wasn't wowed, it wasn't new, it wasn't innovative, it wasn't fresh, but it was fine. It was fun. I enjoyed it. 3.5 stars. Next up, we have A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole. So this is a romance about a young girl who's studying to be, I forgot the word for it, but like a person who studies diseases. And so she keeps getting these emails at the beginning of this book from a prince, And she's like, oh, well, these are scams. But as it turns out, she's actually being courted by a prince. And so he comes to the United States and tries to woo her, essentially. They have a romance, and it was fun. It was cute. The steamy scenes were steamy. The book overall, though, was just not interesting. It's just sometimes where characters would not choose to communicate, would not open their mouth. That crap just annoys me to no end. I really hate that. I just wish people would communicate with each other and talk about it. Like, I get when if you don't know how you're feeling or you don't know your feelings, but like there was just like intentional not giving people information that they should have, and like knowing you're not doing it. Like why? That's useless. That's pointless. Just don't do it. Just talk. One thing I really hate is when the conflict in a book feels like it was just a conflict thrown in to have a conflict, like where you're like, oh, well, we need to have like a rising conflict because that's how writing books works, and we need to have tension, and like I'll just throw this in. Like, I want it to be a logical progression. I want it to be something that makes sense. I don't want it to feel like you just threw it in because you had to. And that's what it felt like to me. So a lot of the issues and tensions here. This was also pretty predictable. I'm interested in reading more in this series. It's called the Reluctant Royals series, and so it's a companion series, and I'm interested in continuing on, essentially. But I'm glad it's a companion series because I'm kind of sick of these characters. But it was an enjoyable read. It was fun while I read it, and it was also a 3.5 stars. Next up, I have a collection of classical poetry. This was like a free option on Audible Escape, and I listened to it really quickly, and it was a lot of fun. It was poetry I've pretty much read before, but it was nice to have it like curated and read to me all in one go, and I really enjoyed the poetry included. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars just because I wish it was longer. I wish we would have gotten some more poetry, some longer form poetry especially. But yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed this. Next up, I have the Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. So this is another romance. I read a lot of these this month. It was just probably the easiest thing to read, and I was, again, trying to get the most out of my Audible Escape membership as I could before it expired. This is the story of a young girl who's autistic, and her mom keeps pressuring her to date and is trying to help her find someone. So instead of being set up on blind dates, she decides she's gonna get an escort to teach her how to have sex because she thinks if she's better at sex, she'll have better luck with men. Okay, sure. Weird plot, but the escort she ends up seeking out is super sweet, and obviously like a romance blooms. This, I thought, especially based on the concept, would be not so great, but it was probably one of the better romances I've read. Really, really enjoyed it. It was pretty steamy. The main male character was so adorable, so sweet. He definitely was like kind of an idiot and made huge mistakes, but like, again, conflict must exist, and this one didn't feel as forced because it kind of made sense with this characterization and with the way the author had written it. Like I said previously, this didn't feel like something that was thrown in because you have to have conflict. This felt like something that naturally made sense with the story and the characters that we had been building up to this point. So I really liked this one. I think it was one of the better romances I've read recently. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. But after I read that, I read my favorite romance I think I may have ever read. This is Never Have I Ever by Lauren Blakely. This is, I believe, only available on Audible, but I highly recommend you give it a go because it was so great. This is an enemies to lovers romance about two people who obviously hate each other, but they ran in the same circles while they were in college. They are now out of college having their careers, and they kind of like share an office space, like not an office space, but they like have offices down the hall from each other, and so they interact a lot with each other. Without spoiling anything, essentially there becomes a situation available where they're thrust to work together for something for their old college friends. And so they have to hang out together. Obviously, they already have proximity to each other. They don't like each other, but you know, they do. Our main female character has a backstory that is, I'm not going to give anything away, but it's very interesting. Probably romance tropey, but I still enjoyed it. And then our main male character is a single dad. His wife passed away. I don't think they ever tell you what she died of, but she was sick, so I assume some kind of illness. And he has 2 kids, and it's just, this is like the healthiest romance ever. There was so much discussion of like consent and birth control and like his kids and how he was like dealing with like having a potential romance while his kids were like there and they knew her because she's babysat them before, and like just all these back and forths were so beautifully discussed, all these things, and like they both opened up at the right times, they communicated, and when they didn't communicate, it didn't feel like this weird choppy thing. It made sense to the story. Overall, a lot of the like conversations they had, a lot of things they went through, the beats they had felt realistic and, like I said, super healthy. I love that. They both had their issues and they worked through them together. My only, I would say, big complaint about this is I felt like the switch from enemies to lovers was super fast. I feel like this is just something that enemies to lovers books do. Like, they super quickly switch. Like, almost as soon as you realize that they hate each other, they like each other. And I also feel like the guy maybe fell for our main female lead too quickly. Like, he was just really into her after like one night together. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Last up is the only non-romance book I read this month, and one of the only YA books I read this month, but also easily the best book I read this month, and that's Wild Dirt Girls by Rory Power. So this is going to be a book that has mixed reviews. It's really going to be divisive, I think, amongst readers, but I loved it so much. So this is often being pitched as like a Lord of the Flies female retelling, and so that was why I picked it up. But I would like to say this is more like, if you like the idea of Lord of the Flies, you'll probably like the idea of this. If you want a Lord of the Flies style story, like a survival story with young kids in like a confined island space trying to survive, but you want it to be girls, yes. But if you're like looking for a straight up retelling, this is not it. This is about a bunch of young kids who go to a school, and while they're there, tox breaks out. So they are just like going through wild biological warfare on their bodies. So the tox is affecting our main characters in ridiculous ways. We have people like eyes scabbing over, like growing a second eyelid. One character has like a second spine, like really gruesome, gross stuff. So the depiction of this stuff is pretty gross. I've heard people say it was really gross. I didn't think it was like necessarily the grossest. I thought it could have, you know, been grosser and I would have lived. However, if gruesome, like weird anatomy stuff kind of freaks you out, I would not recommend reading this. Another thing that's going to make this book very divisive is the ending. It's not tied up in a pretty bow, but if you have been on my channel for a while, you probably know that I hate when endings are tied up with a pretty bow, which is often something I hate about romances, because romance authors tend to like to tie things up with pretty bows, and I don't know. Life isn't tied up with pretty bows. I do often like ambiguous endings, and this is like the epitome of that. Like, you don't know what happened. And I like that. Like, a lot of people say like, I didn't expect it to end where it did, but like, I can't imagine this book ending any other way. It makes perfect sense to me, and I really enjoyed it. I think Rory Power did a remarkable job with this. Like, I felt like I was there on the island with the girls. I could see the way things were going down. I really think this would make a very fascinating movie. I really hope this gets adapted one day. And I loved this so much. I already want to reread it. I want to buy a copy. I really love this. And I know you're going to hear a lot of reviews of people who love this. And I know you're going to hear a lot of reviews of people who didn't like this. And I think if you're interested, it's worth giving a go. Just know it's definitely not going to be for everyone. I feel like I was super unarticulate in this video, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.